Arizona, the land of desert sun, booming suburbs, and one of the hottest housing markets in America just a few years ago. But in 2025, that dream is unraveling. The Arizona housing bubble has burst, and from Phoenix to Flagstaff, cities across the state are facing a dramatic collapse. Home prices that soared during the pandemic are now plunging. Inventory is flooding the market, mortgage rates have crushed affordability, and families who once rushed to Arizona are now fleeing the very cities they helped overheat. Today, we count down the 10 Arizona cities where the housing market is crashing hardest in 2025. Stay with us until the end because number 1 will shock even the biggest real estate watchers. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to Discover the Nation. Your support helps us reveal the truth behind America's housing collapse.
Number 10. Mesa. Mesa was once the go-to refuge for families priced out of Phoenix, a sprawling suburb where new developments promised affordable homes and a suburban lifestyle. At its peak, Mesa looked unstoppable. Median home prices soared to nearly $460,000, with out-of-state buyers pouring in, driving bidding wars and reshaping neighborhoods almost overnight. But in 2025, the cracks in Mesa's housing foundation are too large to ignore. Today, listings sit for months without offers. Prices are sliding downward, yet affordability hasn't returned. Rising property taxes and stagnant wages weigh heavily on Mesa's working-class families, the very people who once fueled its growth. And then there's the heat. Arizona's record-breaking summers have turned home ownership into an endurance test. Cooling costs can push electric bills into the thousands, a burden many households simply can't sustain. The problem isn't just financial. Infrastructure never caught up to Mesa's explosive growth. Schools are overcrowded, road congestion is worsening, and water scarcity adds another layer of uncertainty. For families, the promise of affordable refuge has given way to frustration. Mesa's story is a warning to every boomtown. Growth without balance leads to collapse. What was once marketed as the dream of desert living is now a market flooded with for sale signs, where the dream of stability is evaporating under the desert sun.
Number 9. Glendale. Glendale rode the pandemic housing boom like a rocket. Investors snapped up properties near Phoenix, betting on endless growth. Home values surged past $420,000. An entire subdivision sold out before construction was even complete. For a brief moment, Glendale looked unstoppable. But in 2025, that story has flipped. The boom has turned to bust, and the city is struggling to find its footing. Prices are now seeing double-digit declines. But falling numbers don't mean homes are affordable. Renters are leaving as costs remain out of step with wages, and vacant homes in newer subdivisions are becoming more common. Insurance premiums are climbing due to Arizona's extreme weather risks, and property taxes creep higher every year. Meanwhile, crime in certain districts has grown worse, scaring away families who might otherwise consider buying. The result? Demand has evaporated. Homes sit unsold, inventory builds up, and neighborhoods that once looked like havens of suburban comfort now feel uncertain. Glendale's retail and entertainment districts, once bright spots for the city, can't offset the housing slump dragging everything else down. For Glendale, the pandemic-era boom was a sugar rush. Now the crash has left behind oversupply, shrinking demand, and families caught in the middle. The city that promised suburban peace is drowning in the reality of a housing market correction.
Number 8. Peoria. Peoria has long marketed itself as the suburban dream. Wide roads, pristine subdivisions, family-friendly amenities, and access to Lake Pleasant for recreation. During the pandemic, that dream exploded in popularity. Homes that once sold for $350,000 suddenly fetched over $500,000, with bidding wars driving prices to unsustainable highs. But in 2025, Peoria's housing market has turned upside down. Homes are now sitting unsold for months, even as sellers slash asking prices by tens of thousands. Outmigration is driving the downturn. Families are packing up and moving to cheaper states like Texas, Nevada, or New Mexico, where property taxes and utilities are far lower. Those who remain are being weighed down by HOA fees, skyrocketing cooling costs, and stagnant wages that no longer cover the price of desert living. The story is particularly harsh in master-planned communities. Subdivisions built for rapid expansion are now flooded with listings, and demand has collapsed. For sale signs dot the streets where kids once played, while many homeowners are forced to lower expectations, selling at a loss just to escape rising costs. Peoria, once one of the fastest-growing cities in Arizona, has become a symbol of unsustainable growth. Its suburban dream is fading, replaced by oversupply, dwindling demand, and neighborhoods caught in limbo. The bubble has burst, and the families left behind are living with the consequences.
Number 7. Tucson. For decades, Tucson carried a reputation as Arizona's affordable alternative, a desert city with charm, history, and a cost of living that made it accessible to retirees, students, and working families. But in 2025, that identity is gone. Median home prices, which sat comfortably under $200,000 in 2019, skyrocketed during the pandemic boom to well over $350,000 before the bubble finally burst. And while prices are now sliding downward, the correction isn't nearly enough to restore balance. Wages in Tucson remain some of the lowest in Arizona, far out of step with the cost of mortgages, insurance, and everyday living. Families are being squeezed on every side, from soaring grocery bills to utility costs that spike in brutal 110-degree summers. Water shortages only intensify the crisis, casting doubt on whether long-term growth in Tucson is even sustainable. The city's appeal to retirees and students has eroded too. Retirees face ballooning property taxes and healthcare costs, while younger residents are leaving for Phoenix, Texas, or out-of-state cities where jobs pay more and housing is more attainable. What remains is a market riddled with listings, shrinking demand, and households teetering on the edge of foreclosure. Tucson's housing story is sobering. Even the cities once celebrated as affordable alternatives aren't immune to collapse when wages, resources, and infrastructure can't support explosive growth. The result is a city caught in a correction it cannot control.
Number 6. Sedona. Sedona has always been one of Arizona's crown jewels, the red rock wonderland that draws millions of tourists every year. A place of luxury spas, spiritual retreats, and high-end second homes. But in 2025, beneath the postcard-perfect views, Sedona's housing market is unraveling in real time. Homes that once sold for $700,000 or more are sitting unsold for months, with sellers chopping prices by tens of thousands and still failing to find buyers. The problem isn't just price, it's the economy that supports it. Sedona's backbone is tourism and service industries, restaurants, hotels, boutique shops, and art galleries. These jobs rarely pay enough to sustain mortgages inflated by out-of-state buyers and speculative investors. The rise of short-term rentals like Airbnb and VRBO drove prices even higher, turning entire neighborhoods into investment properties. But now, as tourism slows and rental demand softens, those very properties are becoming liabilities. For full-time residents, the squeeze is brutal. Water scarcity looms over every household, HOA fees continue to climb, and utility bills during summer months are unbearable. Even basics like groceries and fuel are more expensive here than in nearby towns, leaving working families little reason to stay. Wealthy retirees and investors who once propped up Sedona's market are retreating, leaving hollow neighborhoods in their wake. Sedona's decline follows the familiar housing bubble playbook: rapid growth, speculative buying, and collapse once reality set in. What's different is the irony. One of America's most beautiful towns is turning into one of its least livable for everyday families. In 2025, Sedona proves that even paradise can become a financial nightmare.
Number 5. Flagstaff. Flagstaff has always stood apart from the rest of Arizona. With its cool mountain air, pine forests, and proximity to the Grand Canyon, it felt like the state's escape from desert heat. Add Northern Arizona University and a steady stream of tourism, and Flagstaff once looked like a stable, vibrant housing market. But in 2025, that story has changed. Median home prices hover around $600,000, far beyond what the local economy can sustain. Most of Flagstaff's jobs are rooted in tourism, hospitality, or education, sectors that don't produce the kind of income needed to cover massive mortgages. Renters are being hit just as hard, with costs spiraling out of reach, forcing many families into smaller towns nearby or out of Arizona entirely. For longtime locals, the city has become almost unrecognizable. Inventory has ballooned as investors retreat. Many who bought second homes or rental properties during the pandemic boom are now desperate to offload them. But with fewer buyers and higher interest rates, the homes sit empty, casting a shadow over once thriving neighborhoods. The result is a market heavy with supply but light on demand, a classic setup for collapse. The cruel irony is that Flagstaff still offers everything it always did: breathtaking views, outdoor recreation, cultural events, and a strong sense of community. Yet those very benefits are overshadowed by crushing costs and shrinking opportunity. Schools face declining enrollment, local businesses struggle as families leave, and the housing market teeters on the brink. In 2025, Flagstaff shows that even charm and natural beauty can't outweigh the math. When incomes and affordability don't align, collapse is inevitable. And Flagstaff is now living that harsh reality.
Number 4. Scottsdale. For decades, Scottsdale has been the crown jewel of Arizona real estate. Luxury golf resorts, designer shopping, and multi-million-dollar desert estates. But in 2025, even this luxury playground isn't immune to the housing collapse. Homes priced above $1 million are sitting unsold for months, while sellers slash asking prices in an effort to attract hesitant buyers. For the first time in decades, Scottsdale's air of invincibility looks fragile. Median values are sliding, and even the short-term rental market, once a cash cow thanks to steady tourism, is softening as visitor numbers decline. Investors who once banked on endless tourism dollars and affluent transplants are rethinking their bets. High property taxes, ballooning insurance premiums, and climate-related risks like water scarcity and wildfires are adding layers of uncertainty that wealthy buyers can no longer ignore. Scottsdale's image as a desert paradise is also clashing with reality. Golf courses and luxury communities rely on vast amounts of water, even as Arizona faces a historic shortage. Rising costs for utilities and services are eroding confidence, while out-migration to lower-cost states is stripping away demand. Scottsdale, once the ultimate symbol of prosperity, is now showing cracks. The very city that defined Arizona luxury has become another warning sign of overextension, proof that even wealth and prestige can't insulate a housing market from collapse.
Number 3. Marana. Marana, once a quiet desert town north of Tucson, became one of Arizona's fastest-growing communities in recent years. Master-planned neighborhoods sprouted from the desert floor, retail centers followed, and families flocked to the area believing they had found affordable suburban comfort. But in 2025, that rapid growth story is hitting a wall. Median home prices surged past $450,000 during the pandemic, fueled by speculative buying and out-of-state migration. Now, those prices are slipping, but affordability hasn't returned. Homes that once sold in days now linger on the market for months, with sellers cutting prices but still struggling to attract buyers. Inventory is piling up, and the demand that once seemed unstoppable is now evaporating. The issue is wages. Marana sits in the Tucson metro, where salaries lag far behind housing costs. Families who moved for affordable desert living are now buckling under mortgage payments, rising HOA fees, and utility bills that spike into the thousands during scorching summer months. Even those with decent incomes feel stretched to the breaking point. Marana's schools and amenities remain strong, but the affordability advantage that fueled its rise has evaporated. What was once a suburban success story has become a case study in unsustainable growth. In 2025, Marana stands as one of Arizona's clearest examples of a bubble city teetering on the edge of collapse.
Number 2. Phoenix. Phoenix, Arizona's capital and one of America's fastest-growing cities, has become the epicenter of the state's housing bust. During the pandemic boom, Phoenix drew thousands of new residents fleeing pricier states like California and Washington. Investors, flippers, and big institutional buyers followed, pushing the median home price near $470,000. Homes sold within days, often above asking price, as bidding wars made it feel like the only way was up. But in 2025, that frenzy has come undone. Prices are now falling across the metro, but affordability hasn't returned. Why? Interest rates. Mortgage payments have nearly doubled in just a few years, locking out families who might otherwise buy. At the same time, foreclosures are ticking upward, reminding residents of the painful scars from the 2008 crash. Once again, Phoenix finds itself at the center of a dangerous housing storm. Inventory is swelling. Properties snapped up by investors during the boom are being dumped back on the market as carrying costs mount. Rental demand is weakening too, with households squeezed by rising insurance, utilities, and stagnant wages. Vacant homes and half-finished developments are creeping across neighborhoods that just a few years ago seemed unstoppable. The desert city that symbolized opportunity has become a place where high costs and shrinking demand collide. Phoenix's story is now one of oversupply, overextension, and an affordability crisis that has pushed the dream of homeownership further out of reach than ever before. Ground zero for the boom is now ground zero for the bust.
Number 1. Surprise. Surprise, Arizona lived up to its name during the pandemic-era housing boom. Once an overlooked desert suburb, it became one of the fastest-growing cities in the state almost overnight. Homes that once sold for $250,000 skyrocketed past $450,000. Entire subdivisions sprang up, and families flocked to what was billed as the perfect blend of affordability and suburban comfort. But in 2025, Surprise has flipped from boomtown to bust, topping the list of Arizona's worst housing crashes. Today, prices are plunging, vacancies are spreading, and once busy neighborhoods risk becoming ghost towns. Why? Because Surprise's growth was fueled by speculation, not stability. Investors bought up properties betting on endless demand, while developers raced ahead with massive projects. But as interest rates climbed, migration slowed, and affordability collapsed, those bets unraveled in spectacular fashion. The cracks show everywhere. Rows of unsold homes line subdivisions, developers have pulled back, and longtime residents are watching their equity evaporate. Families who stretched their budgets to buy during the boom are now stuck with mortgages that dwarf current market values. Rising insurance premiums, punishing summer cooling bills, and Arizona's worsening water scarcity add fuel to the fire, pushing even more households to leave. Surprise is the clearest example of how quickly hype can turn to heartbreak. In just a few short years, the hidden gem of Arizona suburbs has become a cautionary tale of overbuilding and collapse. In 2025, Surprise isn't the rising star of Arizona real estate, it's the state's most visible reminder that housing bubbles always burst.
And there you have it. 10 Arizona cities where the housing bubble has burst and the dream is collapsing. From Mesa's overheated sprawl to Scottsdale's fragile luxury market, from Sedona's paradise-turned-nightmare to Surprise's ghost neighborhoods, the message is the same. Unchecked growth always comes with a price. Arizona was once the poster child of opportunity, affordable homes, wide-open suburbs, and booming migration. But in 2025, the cracks are undeniable. Prices surged too high, too fast. Wages couldn't keep up. Water scarcity, soaring utilities, and investor speculation built a fragile foundation. And now, that foundation is giving way. For families, the impact is heartbreaking. Communities once buzzing with life are dotted with for sale signs. Subdivisions stand half empty, and longtime residents, teachers, service workers, retirees, are being forced out of the very cities they helped build. This is the story of Arizona's housing collapse, a cautionary tale for the rest of America. Because when affordability disappears, when speculation replaces stability, and when growth outpaces reality, even the fastest-growing states can stumble into ghost town silence. This was Arizona housing bubble burst, 10 cities housing crash in Arizona. If you found this eye-opening, make sure to subscribe to Discover the Nation. Your support helps us keep uncovering the truth behind America's housing crisis, one city at a time.